Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Entertainment Evolved. We're here back in the studio. We're trying out a couple different things, so if you notice that throughout the season that the intro is different and the camera angle might be a little changed here and now again, and may rearrange the shelves here. So this is an experimental season. We're trying out all the things to see what works.
Yeah, you started an OnlyFans too, correct?
No.
Oh.
No. That was actually the homie Oz over at Tavern Sport.
Okay.
Yeah, he's saying that if he doesn't get 100 subscribers, he's not going to put out another episode. So.
Well, hop two.
Yeah, get on that. But as you have figured out, if you're on video with me, I have here with me the homie Ace from the Superhero Homies podcast.
That's me. Glad to be here, and I am so glad that you're taking the reins on this one.
Taking the reins implies that I have them. And, speaking of the shelves, normally I'd bring an item down here. And unfortunately, on Monday, I'm going to have the new Sanderson book in. You, Me, and the Nightmare Painter. It's going to be here Monday. Don't have it yet. It's going to be very pretty like this.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the cover. It looks amazing. And I was like, that would happen. Just kind of like how every time on your show we do a comic news episode, the next day shit completely blows up.
Yep.
So we are going to talk today about Oppenheimer. We saw this. We're recording this on a Saturday. We saw this at a 9:15 showing on a Thursday night. We got out of the theater at like 12:30.
Yeah, we started watching this movie on a Thursday and finished it on a Friday.
That's correct. Yeah. And, once upon a time, that wasn't that uncommon.
Right.
But these days, it did not feel good.
It doesn't feel that good anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we used to have that 11:59 showing, and then now it's like, how did we get out of the theater at like 2:30?
It's crazy how subtle things change over time, where like things that you would do before I wouldn't even fathom doing now.
Right, yeah.
The last time that I personally reviewed a movie at that time was Aquaman, and I almost drowned myself.
I do recall that.
Yeah.
Then that's a great. I don't think we've had a better interlude actually at all. Although you're trying, you're getting there.
I'm trying.
I can recall the last Harry Potter movie. We could not get into the midnight showing, so we ended up getting into the 3 a.m. showing.
So the midnight showing was sold out?
Yeah, and so we ended up getting a 3 a.m. showing. So like the IMAX showing was like it's like a 2.5 hour movie. Right. By the way, I in no way support of J.K. Rowling. We didn't know yet back then. Yeah, so it was like a 2.5 hour long movie. So they had a second showing in the IMAX at 3 a.m. And that was before that was when the one IMAX screen was like the only thing around. And yeah, so I got out of that movie at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, see, that's ridiculous. And first of all, like, it's crazy to think that the poor people who work in the theaters had to stick around for that long, for a 3 a.m. showing. Good grief.
Yeah. So here we are. The subject matter today, we're going to be talking about Christopher Nolan's latest epic, Oppenheimer.
This movie is the bomb.
How long have you been waiting to say that?
Since Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you'd been planning this for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be very upfront here with everyone. I have no idea how we review this film. I just don't. I have no idea how we review it, but we're going to give it our damnedest. We are going to do a spoiler-free section. I don't know how far we really can go in that because, number one, this movie, and this is kind of, I think a big talking point is, this movie is almost entirely rooted in fact. Mm-hmm. It's maybe, a little dramatized, which it's a film,
right?
But I think a lot of expectations, mine included, were that Christopher Nolan was going to take a core concept and then he was going to take it off into left field as he's known to do.
Right.
And this is biopic. Like this is not. There's not some crazy science fiction thing that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. This is literally a very, very personal tale that is very centered on the titular character.
Yeah, this was definitely a passion project of Nolan, and you can just tell by the way this movie is made that he was very passionate about making this movie and that he had a lot of personal ties to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you think it was going to be like as historically based as it is, or did you think he was going to do something off the wall?
I didn't know what to expect. I think that going into this movie, I was leaning more towards he's just going to play it straight,
Right.
straight as he can, because this movie, and man, forgive me, I forget who said this, but it was someone who said that this movie it seems more like something that Oliver Stone would make, but with all of Christopher Nolan's isms put into it.
Right.
And I thought that was very accurate, because obviously Oliver Stone is known to make movies that are very much rooted in fact-based history and whatnot. And so going into this movie, my thoughts were that this would be very true to the nature of what happened and the man, Oppenheimer, and the people around him, but it's going to be from an angle that only Nolan can really kind of expose.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what we got.
Yeah, I mean, from a directorial standpoint, right?
Yeah.
The man never disappoints.
Right.
Even in movies like Tenet, and if you're just if you're not a like hardcore Christopher Nolan fan and you're tuning into this, Christopher Nolan very famous for movies like Memento, which was his first like really big release, Insomnia, The Prestige, which in my opinion the greatest movie ever made, hands down. Of course. What really brought him more into the mainstream with everyone was the Dark Knight trilogy. He did all three of those, basically reinvented Batman for the live-action big screen. I won't say reinvented, I will say revitalized.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was following up on the
Schumacher era.
The Schumacher era.
Yep.
And Warner Brothers thought that they had tanked basically one of their, biggest money pits.
Right.
And then, he is known for Inception because that's about the time where he had a lot of fame from doing the Batman movies.
Right. It was Inception was after Dark Knight and before Rises, so
Yep.
that was,
Perfect time.
yeah.
And then he followed up Rises with Interstellar.
Interstellar, yeah. So
Which, that movie, Prestige and Interstellar are probably both. Prestige is number one for me, but Interstellar is probably top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that movie.
yeah.
And then he had Dunkirk after that.
Yep.
Which, I feel like that's probably the closest movie to this one.
I see what you mean.
Out of all of his,
Yeah.
because it's dramatized, but it's very rooted in things that actually happened.
Right.
And then, so Tenet kind of took that Inception formula and kind of was like, how far can we possibly take this? I think in the opinions of critics and probably myself too, it is a little too far, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Tenet, oddly enough, is one of those movies that I appreciate more as time goes on, and I think a lot of people are like that with his movies in general because his movies kind of start off at a base level of high concept, and even movies like Dunkirk and Oppenheimer. Even though they are based in facts and reality, they still have a very kind of high concept to them.
Right. For sure.
Like they're still not necessarily easy to follow in comparison to most of your average movies.
Right.
But if you look at something like Tenet, yeah, you're right. It is entirely way too far out there in left field. But I don't know if this was done purposely. Honestly, it probably wasn't. But for me, it just adds to the replay value, Like maybe one day I will understand Tenet.
Yeah. When you're far enough in the future to be
Yeah.
the people that they're fighting,
Right.
you can maybe finally understand the movie. It was Tenet was something else. We're not here to review Tenet. We
Yeah.
can probably talk about it for 20 minutes. You guys have a review of Tenet, yeah?
We technically do. I give a disclaimer at the beginning saying that I don't think I know enough to give a full to spoil the movie anyway. But we tried our best. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do our best to avoid spoilers for Oppenheimer here, and we'll definitely give you a good warning once that section has ended. Um, I don't quite want to talk overall thoughts on the movie yet. I want to go right to the main man here. I want to talk about Cillian Murphy and his performance here as J. Robert Oppenheimer. What did you think about his performance here?
I love this performance. I thought that. So I don't know a whole lot about Oppenheimer other than the obvious, And there is that footage, or it may just be audio, of him speaking after the test bomb was dropped that you can actually find in here.
The Trinity test.
Yeah. And he's quoting, what is it, the Bhagavad Gita? I think that's what it's called. He's quoting that famous line that they, have him say in the movie a time or two. And it's, from what I know about Oppenheimer, it's like something like that happens, and something so monumental and something so amazing and deadly and dangerous, but yet you listen to that original audio and he's very even keel, even though you know that like that's something that's mentally has got to be messing with him.
Right.
And that's kind of the extent to what I can assume that I know about the man himself. But I feel that Cillian Murphy really did a great job of driving home on that kind of even keel on the outside, but maybe unraveling on the inside. So I really thought that he did an excellent job of displaying a man who was desperately trying to maybe prove something to himself and to the world, but also had a sense of morality, but also is human.
Right.
So all the elements of the man himself are very much on display here, and that's what this movie is. I think that this is, maybe other than the Dark Knight trilogy, this is the most character-focused movie, I think, that Nolan has ever made.
Yeah, I really love how flawed everybody is, and
Yeah.
how the script, it really highlights that about pretty much all of your main characters, and even a lot of the side characters. They're all depicted as flawed. This is not like some worship piece where they're trying to make him out to be something that he isn't. And that kind of goes along with, I think, his actual legacy, because in the real events, we really did see him go through a lot of this stuff. They tried to sort of demean him in front of the American public, discredit him, and it really didn't work out in the end, because he is credited as the father of the atomic bomb.
Right.
Now, that's a double-edged sword, obviously, right? Because you are, you're one of the most brilliant minds of the 19th century, maybe the most brilliant. But at the same time, it's possible that one day his research will lead to the destruction of life on this planet.
Yeah. But, you mentioned something, and it really can't be overstated, I think, but it is so important that Nolan didn't make this a propaganda piece.
Right.
Because I can completely see a filmmaker making this a praise film, or something that just completely demoralizes and demeans the man.
Yeah.
But instead, what we got was something. We got something that was had to have been a new type of challenge, because we got something that was so interpersonal and introspective, but was also removed from giving his own opinion on the matter.
Have you ever seen Pirates of Silicon Valley?
No.
So Pirates of Silicon Valley is like a 90s movie. It's very good. I highly recommend it. And it reminds me a lot of this. It is dramatized, but it is very based on two flawed characters, and that's Bill Gates and Steve Jobs.
Oh, okay.
And it is kind of the history of kind of what happened there. And as you know, like in the later 2000s, I think like 2008, 2009 era, we got the movie Jobs, which was a fucking hero worship, complete nonsense propaganda piece.
Is that the one with Ashton Kutcher or Michael Fassbender? Because there were multiple.
Yeah, there was a couple. One of them, I think it's the one with Fassbender, is the one that's just a straight up like masturbatory Steve Jobs piece.
Yeah.
The one with Kutcher, I can't remember the actual name of that movie. One of them might have been called Jobs, and the other one might have been called Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
But the one with Ashton Kutcher was way better than the one with
Fassbender.
But I would say that the only one of them that's like more accurate is Pirates of Silicon Valley. And if you've seen that and then you watch those, you're just kind of like, eh. Because in Pirates of Silicon Valley, it doesn't have really anybody like super famous in it, but they're both shown as like these kind of flawed, underhanded type characters where they have this very subtle rivalry that sometimes is not subtle.
Yeah.
But it clearly depicts Steve Jobs, being an asshole at work. Not even wanting to support his kid, even though he was, an overnight millionaire.
Right.
Bill Gates, taking other people's ideas and reselling them for 100 times the value.
Right.
And, it very clearly displays both of them pretty honestly. And I feel like this movie has that very same kind of point of view to it.
Yeah.
Another thing interesting about this too is the script was written in first person.
Yeah.
So, in the actual script, it says, I walk over to the window and look out. And I've never heard of anyone doing that before.
Yeah, I heard that, and I was like, what does that even mean? Like, how do you do that?
And while there are scenes in the movie that don't have Oppenheimer in them, this movie is entirely revolves around him.
Yeah.
If there's a scene he's not in, it's typically about him.
Yeah, and again, it's important to know that this movie is called Oppenheimer. It's not called Nukeville or for people who haven't seen the movie yet, it is important to keep that in mind when you watch it. That this movie is about him.
Right.
Is obviously there's a very metaphorically and literally a big event that happens, obviously, but that is just a part of his story. And so if you go into the movie maybe looking just for that, expecting that to be like the big build-up and the big climax, then I think maybe you're kind of missing out on an opportunity to really see what this movie is all about, which is about the lead up to that and, kind of the man behind that,
Right. And, if this movie does have a relationship with Tenet, it is this. In the plot in Tenet, and even though some of you have seen the movie, you may be finding this out for the first time. The plot in Tenet is around basically allowing them to uninvent something. It's the concept of what if we uninvented this technology that's going to ruin us? And this movie is about a very real, this has happened, this is the world we live in, it shaped the world we live in. We invented something, we let the genie out of the bottle, and it cannot go back in.
Yeah.
Because the creation of the atom bomb started the atomic age. I mean, nuclear energy. You and I did a review of Chernobyl right here.
Yep.
It would have been completely impossible without this man's research for any of that to happen. I will say that we talked about this at the theater. I do think that this would have been better presented in that kind of format. With Christopher Nolan still at the helm.
Christopher Nolan still at the helm. I agree. I 100% agree. And man, that's kind of like the crazy thing, right? Because I think about it like this: if Nolan had the idea or the plan to do Oppenheimer first before Tenet, and to present it as a TV show, it would have come out during the pandemic era. It would have come out on HBO. It would have come out as a mini series of some sort in that regard. And I think it would have did gangbusters.
Yeah.
And then Tenet would have come out now, and I think it would have did gangbusters.
Yeah. Instead, though, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
Tenet came out, and it ruined his relationship with Warner Brothers. And then so now Universal is about to rack in all this money.
Yep.
This is going to be the biggest box office weekend of the year, hands down. I don't think there's going to be any competition on that.
What was that movie that Mario made $1 billion? You think it's gonna? I don't know if it's gonna do.
I don't think this is going to make $1 billion, but I'm
Yeah.
saying this is going to be the biggest box office weekend.
Okay.
Because Barbie is going to clear 300 mil. That's
grief.
based off of yesterday and today.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure sometime tomorrow we're going to hear that it's done 300 million. And so it will be the biggest opening weekend of the year. So
Yeah.
that combined with, I think they're calling for, I think this had a 60 million opening night.
Oh, nice. Good grief.
So they're saying this is going to be probably in the 100 mil range, which
Yeah.
for an R-rated movie is still a big deal.
Yeah.
And you got to think there's so much crossover where people are seeing both. So, tons of people went and saw Barbie on Thursday night, and they're going to go see this, and then vice versa.
Right.
And that, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Barbenheimer phenomenon
Yeah.
sometimes the internet can just bring things to life, and this is one of those phenomenon where
Right.
that has happened, right?
Yeah. You guys remember Ugandan Knuckles? Where the hell did he come from?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it was birthed. And, the internet birthed it into existence.
This is like what Sony thought was going to happen with not Venom, with Morbius when they re-released it.
Right.
They were like, yeah, everyone on the internet is talking about this. We'll put it back out and they'll go see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Sony. Yeah. They really need someone who has their boots on the ground. But, but yeah, Barbenheimer. So, mindlessly scrolling social media, I had seen like a meme or two, but if you're not looking for it, then you don't see it. And then it was you who brought it to my attention one day, and I was like, I don't know what do you mean? What is this even? And you explained the whole concept, and I was like, this is ridiculous. But I think that's the reason why it blew up, is because it's such a ridiculous concept.
There's merchandise out there for it.
Wow.
I saw a shirt earlier that had the release date, and it was down the middle, pink on this half,
Right.
black on this half, and it has like the Barben and then the Heimer on the other side, and then it has the date.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just seen so much stuff. I mean, the actual casts of both films, when they were allowed to promote the movies, were talking about it a lot. I mean, even Christopher Nolan mentioned it, and that's when it really took off.
Right.
Christopher Nolan's like, yeah, I think this is a great thing for the box office, whatever. I'm going to see both. Even in interviews about the new Mission Impossible, people were asking Tom Cruise about it, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to go see them both on the same day, and then it blew up even further. So,
if I could say, I love this rare occurrence where like these two movies being released on the same day, praise each other and get so much love and so much synergy there. If these movies were similar or the same genre, this would not be a thing.
No, it's counter programming.
Right.
Really. And also, if these were both superhero films, this would not be happening because the fanboys would be at each other's throats instead.
Right. Yeah.
Like, God forbid that, the studios wouldn't allow this to happen because it would be, it would be a death knell for them. But, if, God forbid that, a Batman and a fucking, Wolverine movie came out on the same day or something,
I think that'd be amazing.
Well, we have the prestige for that.
That's true. We do have the prestige. Yeah. Black Widow's even in it for a little bit.
Yeah, right back to Christopher Nolan. Here we are. He knew what was up. I gotta say too. This is the cast list, by the way. We don't have an outline here because I couldn't think of what to put on it.
Right.
So this is the cast list. It's so many pages because the cast for this movie, I think, is just. I think this is the most star-studded cast. Period. We're not gonna have time to talk about everybody on here, so I think I'm gonna pick 5.
Yeah.
The top 5, and we'll talk about them. The most talked about performance, I think, is probably Robert Downey Jr. As Lewis Strauss, and I would say he is probably the secondary focus of the movie.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy obviously being the lead role, everything's kind of through his eyes. and Strauss probably gets the second most amount of screen time.
Yep.
I will say there was only a few little moments, and because I'm a fucking critic, I was watching for it, where you kind of got a little Tony Stark bleed through. But he definitely does not have the Jack Sparrow thing going on where he's just that character.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me down like a train or trail of thoughts about RDJ and his performance here and, people's thoughts on it. I think that his performance was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was great. However, I do think that maybe it was just a tad bit overblown online. And the reason I think that is because I look at his performance, and when I compare it to people who got a similar amount of screen time, I'm like, their performance was right there. And I think that maybe subconsciously in a lot of people's minds, they just know him as Tony Stark. And I'm like, RDJ is a real fucking actor.
Yeah.
Like, he can act, so in my mind, I wasn't even thinking that there would be some Tony Stark input here. Like when I watch Christian Bale, I don't look for Batman. I know he can act. He can do anything.
Well, and I didn't.
I know you didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
But I think that online, there's a lot of people out there who are talking about his performance, and they speak about his performance the same way that last year people spoke about Angela Bassett. Like the same type of verbiage was being used, the same type of hype for their performance was being thrown around. And I'm like, what Angela Bassett did, though, for Black Panther 2, to me, she stood head and shoulders above everyone else, whereas I think Robert Downey Jr. is almost on, not quite even, but he still gives an amazing performance, but he's not blowing everyone else away.
That is kind of how some of the original perceptions online were. It reminds me a lot of when T-Pain did the Tiny Desk concert. And people were like, oh, this motherfucker can sing.
It's because they didn't know that he could actually sing. Yeah.
And I'm like, right.
Yeah.
and it's that same kind of vibe where it's just like, of course Robert Downey Jr. can act.
Right.
But I think what it is in the modern era, obviously he's never going to be famous for anything other than Tony Stark.
Correct.
Sherlock, whatever. He's got other roles out there that he's played. He may win an Oscar for this. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be mad at it.
No.
Not that I give a shit about the Oscars anyway, because 9 times out of 10 they have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
But it's like, you look at it and it's like, yeah, of course he came to the table. But I think a lot of it has to do with he wanted to separate himself from Tony Stark. He didn't like the fact that he was kind of typecast as that character and like couldn't separate himself from the MCU.
Yeah.
And then he was in another movie, I think, right after that, and it did terribly.
Doolittle, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, and it did terribly. And I'm sure as a person, he probably was like, shit, am I just Tony Stark now? Like, is that what I'm going to be? Which, I mean, clearly.
Hopefully he was like, oh, wait, no, this script is just awful.
Right. And then, here comes Christopher Nolan.
Right.
And gives him this wonderful opportunity because Christopher Nolan is clearly like, of course Robert Downey Jr. can fucking act. And, I mean, there's some heavy hitters on this list. There's a ton of heavy hitters on this list. Holy shit. And then, I think he's right up there with them. If I had to say, I would say Cillian Murphy. I would say Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And probably RDJ are like right there. And maybe I would even say Florence Pugh. They're maybe just a hair above everyone else. And that's the line for me. But I think all the performances are good.
For me, I got to put Emily Blunt up there too. But
oh, yeah, we can talk about that. We're about to disagree super heavily on this. I actually thought that I full disclaimer, I don't like her. Okay? I think that one movie that she's in with Tom Cruise, Day After Tomorrow, or whatever the fuck it's called.
No, Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. Day After Tomorrow is the disaster movie.
Yeah.
Which is also good. But I think that Edge of Tomorrow is the only thing I've ever liked her in.
Wow.
She has one scene in this movie that I loved. We can talk about it in the spoiler section. Mm-hmm. But I just don't feel – I feel like anybody could have done her part here. And maybe that's the writing for the character. but I've just never been blown away by her. I do not get it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that's a hot take. Let me know in the comments of wherever you're watching this. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but to me, it's not. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I thought she was phenomenal, but
the one, the scene I'm talking about.
I do, of course, yeah.
And I thought that was well done.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just thought you could have gotten
kind of
not anybody,
right?
Not somebody off the street, but like anybody who's like a B-list or above actor. I feel like could have done this part.
I guess the reason I disagree, particularly with this movie, is because she does a lot of acting that's nonverbal, and in that nonverbal communication, you still understand everything that her character is experiencing and going through, and wants to say but won't. And then when she does, also deliver dialogue with it, it just enhances it further. So she does a lot of that really well in this movie to me.
Yeah, and I will give props for that. I fucking loved Matt Damon in this.
Oh yeah.
He was probably like I always like him and stuff. Mm-hmm. We talk about The Martian. That's one of my favorite movies. But I was not prepared. If I got blown away by anybody, it was probably him. Just from an expectation standpoint, because I thought he was going to be sort of a minor character, and he's really not. And when he is on screen, he's stealing it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Going into the movie, I didn't know he was in it.
Well, that was probably really blew your expectations away then.
Yeah, and then just imagine my surprise seeing him on screen. Oh, that's Matt Damon. And then I'm like, he was probably just like a glorified cameo type bit. No, he is in the movie.
That's what I was expecting. It was going to be glorified cameo type thing. But he has a great arc in this.
He does.
Yeah. We'll talk about Florence Pugh as well. Mm-hmm. She has the least screen time of anybody we've mentioned. But I think when she is on screen, it's very powerful.
I do too. It may be for slightly different reasons, but we'll get there.
It is not. I don't consider this a spoiler. She does show some skin in this movie, and that's not why I think she was fantastic in it. But I was very pleased with that as well.
Yeah.
That caught me off guard. I did not think that was going to happen.
Yeah. I forgot that the movie was rated R. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan one night was awake at 4 a.m.
Right.
Was like, God, this script really needs something, and I just can't put.
How can I keep Q's attention the whole way through?
Yeah. What if we just had Florence Pugh naked throughout the film at random intervals?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work great. Yeah, get her on the phone.
Yeah.
It worked.
She did do an amazing job though with her role. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of that to me also has to do with the arc that her character had in this movie.
Yeah, that shit hit me, man, because, I know a lot of those. Mm-hmm. Not so much anymore, but I have a past that has a lot of those in it. And, I know the whole drill there. Mm-hmm. So, it was something else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought she did great, man. And, again, it caught me by surprise because, honestly, going into this movie, I only knew two characters. I only knew two actors that were going to be in it.
Right.
That's Cillian Murphy and RDJ.
Yeah.
And everything else was pretty much a surprise for me.
What you think about the score here? Hans didn't do this one, right?
No, it was Ludwig. I forget his last name.
The dude that did Tenet.
Yeah, same guy that did Tenet.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that not only was the score damn near immaculate, but it was done to precision. So if he had it dialed up any more, or if he had it hit any harder at certain points, then it would have almost felt somewhat masturbatory during certain parts.
Yeah,
almost undeserved. But the way that it's presented, I'm like, you were close, but I still like it.
Yeah, I think it was the right call too, because I just know that if Hans Zimmer had done this, nothing against my boy because I love him, But for like the last 40 minutes,
Oh, yeah.
it would have been like just on that incline
Right.
for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It would have been like from the moment that the bomb goes off. Spoilers: a bomb goes off in this movie until the credits roll.
Oh,
It
yeah.
would have been one fucking just
Oh.
escalating.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and again, like this isn't anything that's a spoiler, but like for most Christopher Nolan movies, there's an ending where you get several scenes in succession that are almost non-dialogue, but kind of giving you more information at the end of the movie. During that part is really where Hans Zimmer loves to crescendo that score, and it would have just been,
yeah. I kind of want to see a cut of it though. I'm sure someone might make it, but I would love to actually see an actual. Like, if he actually scored the movie, it would be interesting.
Yeah.
But worse. Like,
right.
I love Hans Zimmer. This is not the movie for him.
Yeah.
Whereas I think maybe Tenet would have been better if he had been the composer, this is not something we typically talk about. But I think with somebody like Nolan, I think we have to talk about the filmography, the cinematography, rather, to be more precise. There's a few key camera techniques that he uses, and I love seeing them. And one of them that he uses a lot, and actually, if you watch, the Russo brothers actually picked this up from him, is he will do a scene that has a lot of people in it. And when the scene starts, the camera will be still, but almost immediately when the scene begins, as soon as someone starts talking, the camera will slow creep up.
Yep.
And you are not sure at the beginning who, like, the main person is in this group of people. But the camera will slowly just kind of hone in on them. And every time he does that shot, I love it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you pointed out now.
Right.
Your DiCaprio meme pointing at the TV.
And he often uses the score to kind of accentuate those shots like that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also really enjoy those shots. He's got some great shots in this movie. Like they just, they work. Like shots that would be mundane, I think, for most people, they just pop here.
He also really, I think he went outside his comfort zone a lot too.
Oh yeah.
In this movie, there's a lot of camera work that I think that we really haven't seen from him. But I do think that he is he is in his prime here from a directorial standpoint. Like almost every damn shot in this movie is perfect.
Right. And for a movie like this, it has to be right.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, this is a biopic,
Yeah.
And if you want to be true to the biopic you're making, there's only so much you can do to make it sexy.
Right.
But the one thing you can do is make your shots immaculate.
Yeah.
And keep your people, and keep the audience engaged that way.
Yeah. I agree, and that actually brings me to the next point here. What'd you think about the way that this movie's paced?
So here's the thing, right? This movie is 3 hours long.
and I'm not going to say you don't feel it, because you do.
Yeah, and, you do feel it, and just it's the nature of the beast, right, with this movie. I don't think that there's a problem with the pacing. I have to see the movie again to really give you a gauge as to if I think there's any wasted screen time, because it's a Nolan movie. You got to see it really more than once if you really want to understand all of it. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of fat in this movie that they could really take out. Nolan typically does a really good job of that with his dialogue shots, especially if they're close cut on somebody. It'll cut to you, you'll say your line, and then immediately smash cut to me, who's sitting right across from you, and I'll say my line. And Nolan does that a lot too.
Yeah.
But
it creates a sense of forward momentum.
It does, yeah. But you got to be, and it also forces the audience to be engaged, because if you are not paying attention, then you're,
right.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you can't be digging in your fruit snacks.
Right. But in terms of the pacing, the movie is long, and yes, you do feel it, but with the nature of a movie like this, there's only so much you can do. I thought that the pacing was what it needed to be, but just because of what this movie is, you know, the pacing is supposed to at times you're just gonna have to feel it.
If I have any complaint, as far as like fat that could be trimmed, and this is double-edged sword too. Is like it's probably I could use a few less scenes of people being like, "Well, your political affiliations," you know. They really hammered that in this movie.
They do,
but it's also like, okay, well, do you want me to stop making the movies too smart for you fucks or not?
Right,
you
right.
know? Nolan's like, I'm gonna feed this one to you.
Yeah.
You said the last one when you couldn't, no one understood it. So
Right.
He's like, I'm gonna now feed you 3 hours of fucking theoretical astrophysics or whatever.
Yeah.
And here we go. So
That is true. There is a lot of kind of a political dialogue that's going on in this movie, but and you're right. They probably could have taken some of that out because after a while, it's like we get it. You know,
Right.
these people had this association, so forth and so on. But yeah, maybe for some people it is necessary.
I mean, this is probably the easiest Nolan movie to understand. I mean, even including the Batman movies, I think. You know,
Maybe.
Dunkirk, maybe. I mean, but you know, like,
Yeah, it's definitely on the easier spectrum. He's got 9 movies to his name now. This is definitely on the easier side of that list.
it's definitely easier than
It's easier than Inception, I think. Easier than
Prestige,
Interstellar.
definitely Interstellar. Definitely Tenet.
Definitely Tenet is expert difficulty.
I'd say it's easier than Memento.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Insomnia is, trippy, but it's not really hard to figure out.
Right.
But it's definitely on the easier end. That being said, man, what would you score this one before we move on? And this is such a hard movie to score.
It is. Like, so here's the thing for me. I think that this movie, by damn near all technical accounts, is about as good as a movie can be. Like,
Yeah.
I think that it is shot very well. I think that it is extremely well written. I think that both the actors and Nolan and the people who also helped write this movie do such a great job of interjecting life and personality into a lot of these characters, and from the side plots in this movie that all tie together into the main plot, that all kind of bleed through together, to the score, to the black and white shots, to the shots with full saturated color. I mean, technically the movie is just damn near flawless. But at the end of the day, you watch movie, or I watch movies for me to be thoroughly entertained. This movie entertained me for a biopic, but for a Nolan movie, I don't know if this is one that I'd be likely to revisit. I mean, so with all that being said, like, I think that it does the best job dealing with Oppenheimer that a movie can ever do. I give this movie an 8.2.
I really thought we were going to be way off on this, but we are not. I agree with you. If I'm judging this movie purely on the technical side of it, it is 100%. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable, even as a critic, saying it's perfect. I don't know that unless Nolan, it's whatever Nolan makes next.
Yeah.
Don't know that in our lifetime we see another movie that is this technically sound.
Yep.
And sometimes it is almost, I think it's almost overwhelming at times, to see things click that well in front of you. It's kind of unnerving, right? Like you almost want it to be a little messed up, because then it's very easy for you to understand the difference between that and like reality.
Right.
You want the glass to be smudged just a tad. But yeah, I agree with you. This from a standpoint of like, this movie is more about informing than it is entertaining. It does have a message, and it's a great message, but it does take 3 hours to get to it. And I think it does it well. I think it's constructed well, but it is at the end of the day, it's a biopic, right? It's about real events that happened. So unless you're gonna do something like Rocket Man and like just which is a amazing film, and I'll watch it 10-1 to this movie. But they embellished and dramatized very heavily on a lot of things, you know. And this movie, they made the very purposeful choice not to do that. So I do think that as a film, it is incredibly technically sound. As a piece of entertainment, though, it leaves some things to be desired. So I'm actually going to give it an 8.0.
Gotcha.
So that being said, we're gonna bullshit for a minute, and at the end of that, it's gonna be spoiler time. So I thought that for the interlude here, that we would rank the Christopher Nolan films.
How did I know this is gonna like something in the back of my mind on the way over here told me that I'm gonna have to prepare like the ranking the Nolan movies, but I was like, he won't do that.
Yeah. So we have you seen Insomnia?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Memento, Insomnia, the 3 Dark Knight movies, Prestige, Interstellar, Inception, Tenet,
Dunkirk,
and this movie. So that's 11.
That's 11. Yeah.
So do we want to start from 11?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
11 being so number 1's the best, right?
Yeah.
And okay,
so we'll start at the worst.
Yep.
Insomnia for me.
Same.
Okay.
Yep. That's the one that he directed that one, but I don't really think he had any writing
he did not.
credits on
that was like a directed for hire type deal for him. It's not an awful movie. I just didn't. I don't like it at all, really. It's not for me.
Yeah. I'm about the same.
And it has like okay. I just want I don't want to frame it here. The movie is directed by Christopher Nolan. It has Al Pacino and Robin fucking Williams in it.
Right.
And I don't like it. So the script sucked. 10 is easy for me. Dunkirk.
Yeah, same.
We on the same on that. So here's where it gets interesting. 9 for me is probably Memento.
Oh boy, it does get difficult right here, right?
So let's narrow it down. If it's not Memento for you, what would it be?
Okay, so Memento is a possibility, but if not Memento, then I think it'd be.
I'll give you my 3. I have Memento, Oppenheimer, and Tenet that could go here.
Yeah, it would have to be one of those, and it would be Memento. Right. It just speaks to the power of his catalog, man. Because I actually quite enjoy Memento.
I do too. Yeah. I don't think there's a terrible film in here.
Yeah, no.
It's just differing degrees of what I personally enjoy, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so 9 is Memento. So then we've got 8. Number 8. I'm gonna go. I think it's Tenet for me.
I think I'm actually gonna go. Man. This is going to be a bit of a curveball in here. Especially coming from me. I'm actually going to put Rises right here.
Ooh, I thought that might happen.
Yeah.
What's your justification for Rises at number 8?
Yeah, so for me, the number 8 spot it could have been Tenet, it could have been Oppenheimer, or it could have been Rises. And the reason why it was Rises is because I thought that one had the most. From a script perspective, it had the most flaws that I could notice. And from a filmmaking perspective, also, there were little things in it that almost felt rushed, that didn't seem very Nolan-like. Meanwhile, those things were not present at all in Oppenheimer, and minimum, if any, in Tenet. So the thing of it is like this, right? So you look at those 3 movies, and obviously, Tenet and Rises have the most action in it. And with me being an action guy, I have a very keen eye for stuff like this. And somehow the action and some of the non-personal fight scenes are very sloppy. And like, how did this make it through editing? Whereas with Tenet, so technical, how did you even do this? And how is it this good? And I'm like, Rises can't hold up to that. And also just like from the way it's shot, like it's just some beautiful shots in Tenet. I'm like, I gotta put Rises right there.
I will give you Rises at number 8. I'll concede on it. Only because of that fucking Talia death scene. It's inexcusable that they went with that cut.
Nolan was on a deadline. Like they gave him like 6 weeks to make that movie.
It had to have been like, this is the last day of filming.
Right.
We have Marion for 5 minutes. We got to shoot this scene real quick.
Well, she was pregnant during that movie, right?
Yeah.
She was cranky.
Maybe she shot that one scene and then went into labor.
Yeah.
And that's the only cut they have.
The only,
That's the canon now. That's all I'll accept. Holy shit. Okay, so we're doing Insomnia, and then we at 11 we have number 10 we have Dunkirk. Number 9 we've got Memento. Number 8 we have Dark Knight Rises.
Yep.
I'm gonna say it's Tenet for me at 7. I cannot, in good faith, rank Tenet above this movie because I just think that this movie is that brilliant.
Well, I agree with you on that. Like
the cast alone, I think, the cast carries the shit out of this movie because, I mean, like you said, there's almost no action in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, the performances have to carry it, and they do. You know.
Right. And it's so hard to build tension in a biopic of all movies that, again, like you said, has very little, action that's 3 hours long. And I mean, you think about most 3-hour movies. You got like Lord of the Rings. You got like you got the Batman. You got a handful of other movies. But most 3-hour movies, there's something in that to keep you on the hook. Whereas with Oppenheimer, the thing that keeps you on the hook, like these actors got to bring it, and the shots have got to encapsulate you. So yeah, with that, I'll give you that. Tenet I think is brilliant, too brilliant for me. But it's undeniable how good that movie looks and how immaculate those action set pieces were. They were phenomenal.
So we're going Tenet at 7, Oppenheimer at 6.
Yeah.
Comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay, so now we got to do the top 5. So out of the top 5, we have Inception, we have Interstellar,
yep.
We have Batman Begins, we have The Dark Knight, and we have The Prestige.
Holy shit.
I am leaning for 5 Inception. I will step out on a limb and say I would be comfortable putting. I know you're not going to let me rank Begins above TDK. I know you're not. You're not going to let me budge on that. That's my personal preference.
Yeah, I'm aware.
I know I'm not going to win that fight. It's not the one I'm here to have. I'm comfortable with Inception or Begins here, but it would be Inception would get my vote over Begins.
Okay, so again, me being the superhero guy, I'm gonna go with you on this one. It is close for me.
It is close.
And like
if I have one in each hand, they have almost a damn near same chance of being watched.
Right. Right. And for me, just personal bias. I gotta put. Yeah, I gotta put Inception in that spot, only because Begins is the greatest superhero origin movie ever made, and it has my favorite superhero in it. So,
do you want it at 4 then?
Boy.
Well, let's slot Inception firmly at 5.
Yep.
And here's the thing: this is bangers only.
Yeah.
At this point, so Inception at 5. We have Begins. We have Dark Knight. We have Prestige. We have Interstellar.
It's got to be. It's got to be Begins.
It's got to be Begins.
Yeah, it's got to be.
We are at a place where we're putting Batman Begins at number 4 on a list.
That's insane. Yeah, it's got to be Begins.
Yeah, because these are all.
Yeah.
These are all tremendous.
Right. Okay, so now we got.
And now it becomes. It's just a game of super fight.
Yeah, it's a nasty slugfest now. Okay, so we're left with The Dark Knight, The Prestige, and Interstellar. Go ahead and say what you got to say. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I already know how this goes out.
Yeah, man. So what you think about TDK at number 3? I can't.
You know,
If I'm being honest
Yeah.
here, man, Dark Knight is an amazing fucking movie, and I think in a silo, I think it may be the best superhero movie ever made.
yeah,
Completely in a silo, right? Like if you're gonna take every single Batman movie and say, okay,
Right.
this is the only Batman movie that exists.
yeah,
What would I want that movie to be?
yep.
It's this one,
Yeah.
like to me,
Yeah. And-
hands down.
So here's the thing: like you were willing to budge on TDK being ranked over Begins. I will give you this. I will say, and you know what though, like it should be known. And I think it is known by most people that even till this day, 15 years later, Jesus,
Yeah.
The Dark Knight is still referenced, still constantly mentioned, constantly watched and compared to. I mean, it's just. I mean, top to bottom, it is what you want from a Batman movie. I mean, it's that movie.
Well, and it also very heavily redefined the way that a superhero film is shot as
Oh,
well
yeah.
and produced. We actually talk about all of this in our review that we did recently. We
Yep.
actually, over on Superhero Homies, we went through every single movie in the Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah, I mean, we kind of talk about that at length there. If you're interested, go check that out.
Absolutely. And first superhero movie to make $1 billion. It's crazy, right? Because I don't think we mentioned that not one time on the reviews we did.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we might not have.
Yeah. But I will give you that. Now, so now there's 2 slots left.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? All right. So we're left with obviously Interstellar and Prestige. Okay.
So here's I'm gonna make my case because
Okay.
anybody who's probably watched any episode of this podcast, or maybe yours,
Mm-hmm.
probably knows that The Prestige is my favorite movie of all time. One of the reasons that I think it goes there is, number one, there's no effects budget really for that movie,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's things that happen in it, obviously, but there's no CG set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
There's no anything. Like, it's almost entirely it has a supernatural concept to it,
Yep.
but it leaves you on the edge of your seat and you're wondering, and it's so carried by the performances. And the cast is, I think it has the second best casting of all these movies behind this one.
And that's saying something because the more you look at Nolan's casting, the man,
Oh yeah, everything in this top
Yeah.
5 is a star-studded,
yeah,
just out of this world cast.
right,
The thing about Prestige, though, to me, is the pacing of that film. To me, it is the tip-top example of pacing.
Mm-hmm.
It's told in a non-linear way, but you never lose the audience on that.
Yep.
And
It
there's
is-
not a single second you could cut from that film.
it is also easier to follow, admittedly, than Interstellar.
Probably to the average person, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also, I'm going to take this away from Interstellar, even though I love the movie. But I feel like to enjoy Interstellar, you have to watch it somewhere where you can turn the sound up to the point that you like feel it going through your body. Because the sound mix for that movie, I get that it's purposeful, but it is fucked if you're trying to like watch it at home and you don't have a crazy sound
Right.
bar or whatever. You're gonna have to cut on the subtitles.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna hear what anybody's talking about.
Yeah.
You know, like the first thing I did when I bought my sound system here is I cranked that shit all the way up and watched Interstellar and just let it fucking glue me to the couch.
Yeah.
And like they're gonna re-release it in IMAX here soon.
Oh, that's great.
And I absolutely plan to go see it.
Yeah.
Because that is absolutely the way to experience that movie. But that's my argument for why it's number 2.
Okay, so if I had to play devil's advocate,
You don't have to, but you can.
I would say that Interstellar is more ambitious, and
I agree with that.
And not only is it more ambitious and more risky, I would say, but it succeeded. And if you wanted to be a critic about it, you could say that the reason it was so commercially successful is because it's coming off the heels of the Dark Knight trilogy. But that says nothing of the of the critical reception and the fan reception of that movie as well. It was received tremendously well by, across the board. It has some of the best visuals. That movie's got to be almost 10 years old now.
Yeah, I agree.
Coming up, yeah.
And also, I will say, too, it was also coming off of McConaughey's run on True Detective.
True Detective, yeah. And this was back when, this was when McConaughey was really on the run again to show people, he's not just the handsome guy and whatever kind of rom-com, but he's an actor's actor.
Right.
And he got back on that run again. And True Detective and then this, Interstellar, he really showed out on that one. But, with all that being said, I still do personally enjoy Prestige ever so slightly more than Interstellar.
Same. And put it right there. So we got Interstellar at number 2 and The Prestige at number 1.
Number 1, yeah.
And for those of you who haven't seen that movie, you should stop watching this and go watch it right now. But come back, though.
Yeah, come back, yeah. Like you said earlier, it's got Batman, Wolverine, Alfred,
Black
Widow. It's star-studded cast there.
It does. So, if you're still here, everything going forward is spoiler-filled for Oppenheimer. It's almost entirely based on real-world events, so I don't know how much of this we really can spoil for you, but here we are.
It'd be like trying to spoil the Titanic,
Right. Yeah. All the rich people died.
Yeah. And a lot of the poor people.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's start off with the scene with him and Einstein.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
The way that this is built throughout the movie was, number one, it was purely Nolan-esque. Mm-hmm. Like this is how he built suspense.
Yep.
Because in the back of your mind, the whole time, every time they show it, you're like, what the fuck did he say to him?
Right.
And I'm so glad that he did not go with an Inception type deal and didn't tell us.
Yeah. I'm glad he didn't do that either. I think that if he didn't want to be so true to making this a biopic, he would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, the brilliance of that scene comes from the fact that Nolan, he adapted this movie from a book. I forget the name of the book.
I think it's called Prometheus.
Oh yeah, that's
something.
right.
It has a subtitle.
Yeah. But the brilliance of it is that, he takes this wonderful, well-written story and he Nolan-fies it,
Right.
And so the classic thing where this story in parts is told in a non-linear fashion, and so very early on he kind of strings you on with that scene with Einstein, and then you go on and we kind of go back and forth a little bit throughout the time intervals, and then we wind up here again close to the end of the movie in this scene with Einstein, and then we finally get that reveal as to what that conversation was. And I mean, what a great scene. And again, the score was really there to support it. So, yeah.
I agree 100%. We actually had there's a couple themes in this movie. Like one of the things I think it gets across really well is the absolute kind of terror that bureaucracy can become.
Right.
Because it's very evident that the whole the Oppenheimer, it wasn't even a trial because it was hearings, because in a court of law there's not even a case.
Yeah.
There's no evidence. Everything in this shit's hearsay. You know what I mean? But they had Roger Robb, who's played by Jason Clarke, fucking immaculately.
This was my favorite role of his by far.
Yeah.
He killed this.
Yeah, he's literally basically a hired gun to go after Oppenheimer's like life.
Yeah.
And they say it early in the movie, like, who would want to sit here and have your whole life picked apart? And that's literally what they did. It's just on the record. Not only did they pick his life apart, but they slanted everything they could against him.
Right.
And then whenever they would have a witness come in that was in favor of him, they would always, be like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, he was, what they asked Matt Damon's character.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he was cleared for security clearance back then, but would you clear him today based on these guidelines that we just changed yesterday?
Right.
Well,
that's very pointed yes or no questions.
Yeah.
That, would just very much narrow down, what your answer could honestly be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a witch hunt, man. It was craziness.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought that was a great theme of the movie. Also, the concept of like this, they even go back to kind of the Jurassic Park concept, that famous Jeff Goldblum line, you spent all this time thinking about whether you could, you didn't think about whether you should.
Right.
And do you think Oppenheimer at the end of the movie, like, is at that conclusion, like maybe they should have left that genie in the bottle?
Yeah, I absolutely think that. Yeah. And again, like, this is really just me basing this off what I was able to kind of pick up from the movie. Again, I haven't really read anything about Oppenheimer.
Right.
So, but just going off of this movie, to me, it felt like using the best reasoning he could, he justified the creation of it.
Right.
And I mean, you could say he has some very good reasons. Like, hey, listen, if we don't do this now, then they will.
Right.
And then if they do it, we have a real big problem on our hands.
Well, and it's also the, and this is a very political movie, right?
Yeah.
So it's impossible to really discuss it without getting into a little bit of political territory here. But they built this thing out of fear.
Yeah.
Because their logic, their reasoning was, well, if we don't build it, they're going to build it.
Yep.
But on the same note, if you build it, then they have to build it.
Then they have to build it, yeah.
And it's like that is what we have seen play out more out of those two scenarios. Whereas it's like we know when they talk about a hydrogen bomb in this movie, we know watching it from here in the future that the hydrogen bomb will get made.
Yeah.
And it is immensely more powerful than the ones that
Right.
they dropped. And the hydrogen bomb, there are enough hydrogen bombs right now, as we record this, on Earth to kill everyone on it several times over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's a fun fact for you guys. If it wasn't for Oppenheimer, I wouldn't have the Watchmen comic book.
That's exactly right. It's crazy because my brain went to Watchmen as well.
Right.
That's what it is about. I mean, that Cold War arms race is directly derived from this.
Right.
And you can even see it starting early in this movie where they're like, we gotta beat our enemy here, and they're like the Germans, and they're like, well, no, you're not thinking about the Russians, and they're like, well, those are our allies, and they're like, yeah, today, and so they already kind of could see that division growing there, and this directly leads into a lot of things that we enjoy. The creation of Watchmen. We talked about Chernobyl earlier.
Yeah,
None of that shit happens without this.
Right.
There's, like I said, this creation kind of unfortunately defined a lot of the 19th century.
Yeah, it did. For better or for worse. And that better or worse is really amplified in this movie, because there's good and bad that comes to this, And it's one of those things, right, where there will always be people who are staunch on either side of this, yes, we absolutely needed to do it. It's the lesser of two evils. You can come up with, dozen or so reasons as to why we should. And on the flip side, you can come up with a dozen or so reasons as to why we should have never.
Right.
And hell,
it's hard for us to judge.
Yeah.
Because we weren't there.
We weren't there.
We know the outcome as it happened.
Right.
But I mean, we're playing quarterback on Monday.
Yeah.
We're not. The day after, yeah, it's easy to say what you would have done.
Right. Mildly distasteful fun fact. I believe as of now, this movie has not as of yet been released in Japan.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that too, and so that's an important thing to discuss.
Yeah.
I think that it's there's a lot of ways you can look at this. There's multiple points in the movie, particularly the one meeting where they're in like that general's office or whatever, and they're discussing what the target is going to be.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, well, there's no military target that's big enough, and this, well, we could do it here, but and they're like, well, we could warn them to reduce like the civilian loss or whatever, and they're like, well, then that's not going to get the point across, and they're just nonchalantly discussing.
This is nonchalant. That's the
deaths
thing.
of tens of thousands of people.
Right. Innocent people.
Yeah. People who have no stake in this war whatsoever. And, I mean, the horror of it, you've got the original heat blast that's going to incinerate people. And then this is the first time that a weapon like this has ever been used. So people don't know anything about radiation.
Right.
So you've got people that crawled out of the rubble of their houses thinking
that they survived,
only to be basically microwaved over the next couple of days. And we saw in Chernobyl exactly how that goes.
Yeah.
And you amplify that, times thousands of people. If there was any hospitals left standing, they probably were overrun. And they had no way to know how to treat any of them, even if they could, because there was no knowledge of any of this shit.
Right. This is all new.
Yeah. I mean, the only people that knew about any of this shit were in that room discussing it or back in the lab building the damn bomb, Yeah,
it really is man playing God to a degree,
Right. Yeah.
Or at the very least, judge, jury, and executioner. Maybe that's more apt, but it's a scary thing, man. And you have to wonder, like, what like the moral ramifications of it. But then again, some people say that there are no morals in war. It's only what you can do to prevent the other side from not getting you.
Well, and the thing about that too is we don't know if Japan would have surrendered.
Yeah.
That question has been talked about in every ethics classroom probably over the last 70 years or whatever. And the fact of the matter is we don't know when or if they would have surrendered. They were saying that they were never going to.
Yeah.
So if you're taking that at face value, then more people would have died if we had to invade.
Yep.
And that is a fact. So did we do the right thing? Was there a reason for us to be at war to begin with? Who are we to say?
And that is like kind of the greater question, taking a step back, like, did we do the right thing? Well, was there a right thing to be done?
Right. And there may not have been a morally sound choice here.
Yeah.
Did they take the lesser of two evils route? Maybe they did.
Yeah. All I know is that whenever I play like Civilization and I start building nukes, they start passing laws and treaties to stop me from making more nukes, and I don't like that.
Well, and that's the thing is like almost immediately, Oppenheimer is like, yeah, we need to start international treaties about this immediately. We need to get all these people involved and come up with this. And it's very interesting to me the exact timing of this movie, and I'm sure that Nolan understands this probably better than I do, is we are at a similar moment in our time right now that Oppenheimer was at in this film in relation to AI.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there calling for basically for us to treat AI the same way that we treat nuclear weapons and nuclear energy. International, agreed upon rules as to like what can be done and where it can be used and what an AI can be taught to do. Because without that, it only takes one person to make the wrong one.
Yeah.
James Cameron made a few movies about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so did The Matrix. The Matrix is there. Same concept. There's a lot of film that kind of goes into that. And you can look at a direct correlation between what Oppenheimer was doing in this movie versus what's being done in these like AI research labs today all over the world. Yeah.
And the scary thing is, right, at least from looking at this just from a state of humanity, these things almost seem like, dare I say, necessary steps in humanity's evolution. It's like we're going to evolve to a point where we create a weapon that's so dangerous that maybe that's going to be the end.
Right.
And we're going to create maybe something that's so advanced that maybe that could be our end. Like so it's the whole question of are we going to be the creators of our own downfall? And like maybe we won't live long enough to see the sun implode, or maybe we won't live long enough for the polar ice caps to flood, or maybe we won't live long enough for the Grand Canyon to finally fucking erupt and super volcano or whatever, and we're all done. Maybe we will be our own downfall, and that's just the natural course of things.
If I was betting on it, I won't be around to collect that bet. But I would bet humanity does not make it to the sun supernova for sure. Because I think we got
it's a couple billion years, right?
It's a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I don't think that the human race, personally, I don't think we make it another 1,000.
Really? That short?
Well, I mean, you got to think about how close we are to the concept of, and this is how it will be presented, is, well, if we have our drones and machines fight their drones and machines, then there's no loss of human life until our machines beat their machines.
Yeah.
And then they either surrender or we use our machines on their humans. And if AI starts to control what's happening on battlefields, the response time and the speed and accuracy with which war is waged will be to the point where humans are unable to interfere or affect it in any way. Because if you have an AI that's constantly learning, like, they are going to build a new robot.
Right.
And we are going to, every time, it's going to be like the fucking Borg. Every time we defeat one, we're going to be better at killing that thing.
Right.
And so then we're going to make stuff that's, our AI is going to make robots designed to kill that robot.
Yep.
Then their AI is going to make robots designed to kill that robot. And it's just going to be this endless thing where eventually you're going to get to where, like, two computers playing chess against each other. But in the real world with, like, bullets and fucking guns and shit. And, yeah, I mean, it'll be like fucking a regular-ass human trying to stand in between, like, two Saiyans fighting.
Right.
Like, they're not even going to be able to comprehend what's happening, much less do anything about it. That's a real thing that we could see in 50 years.
Right.
And I don't see humanity coming, like... The problem with humanity is we very rarely ever de-escalate anything.
Oh, yeah.
The Cuban Missile Crisis, we were on the brink.
Oh, yeah.
There.
We were so close right there. And, man, like, a lot of people just don't know because, again, it's kind of downplayed, but we were so close to the end right there.
Yeah. And it's like, how long before another one of those situations happens? And do we always count on cooler heads to prevail? I don't think it happens. It's only going to take us putting the wrong person in a position to make the right decision, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
And we're gone.
Yeah.
And who knows what the next thing we're going to come up with?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be great, whatever it is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, man. So, kind of got a little heavy there on the themes of this movie, but that's
kind of the point.
That is the point. That's the center of it here. So you have both of those concepts, kind of the politics of it and the morals of it, and they kind of revolve around Cillian Murphy's like amazing, like just haunted performance here.
Right.
And I loved how he played him at every age.
Oh yeah, yeah. At every age, I'm like, you should not be a college student, but I'll accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, fellow kids.
What do you think about the scenes we got where it was like the kind of like the interpersonal play that was happening, like the things happening in his mind were being projected on the screen? What do you think about those shots?
I loved that because he had the foresight to see where it was going before anybody else did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I think he's one of the first people that went, they're going to build a bomb.
Yep.
And then, you know, he's like they came to him like it was this big secret, and he was like, yeah, you're building a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if you're not, then you should be.
Yeah.
Because the Germans are already doing it. And you have to think about the horror involved if, like, Hitler had, you know, if Hitler had one of these weapons. Because he definitely would have used it on whatever.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I'm a crazy motherfucker. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he probably would have dropped one on London or, you know, Madrid or any of these places.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think they had a plane that could make it over here, but,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
If you can nuke fucking half of Europe into the ground, it doesn't
right.
take long.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have cared.
No.
You know? So, yeah. That's, you know, they say that the victors write history, so I guess we should be thankful that the good guys won.
Yeah.
It's weird that they win every time, though.
It is. The good guys always win.
And I'm not in any way trying to imply that the Nazis were not the bad guys. They absolutely were. But it's weird how, like, in every conflict ever, the good guys always won.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? Because, like, we always look at it as good versus bad. I'm like, sometimes it can be bad versus badder.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Bad versus worse.
Yeah. Agreed. I was watching The Departed just the other night.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much what that's about,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Great fucking movie, by the way.
That is a good movie.
Is that a Scorsese?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I actually don't. This is a rabbit hole, but I actually don't love a ton of Scorsese flicks.
No.
And I know that that's a fucking hot take.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I don't hate any of them really.
Yeah.
I just don't. I never come out of them like, oh my god, that was the best movie I've ever seen. Like The Departed is a great movie.
Yeah.
I think. I think his directing style is just a tad bit old school for me.
Okay.
Not that it is bad. He's like Nolan. He's got a bunch of little unique things he does.
Yeah.
I guess they just don't do it for me because I like that Nolan has that classic directorial skill, but then he's able to scale it to do all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
Whereas Scorsese it's usually going to be like a couple people in a room talking.
Yep.
And someone's going to die.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And,
that's his wheelhouse.
That is his wheelhouse, but he's so good at that because, like,
the script will be immaculate.
Oh, the script would be amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because his whole thing is like is setting and characters. You know, like those are his two big things. And I mean, even you look at something like Taxi Driver with De Niro, and you're like, yeah, that's a fucking wild, wild movie because New York feels like its own entity. You know, the setting, and then De Niro is just like obviously playing the character Travis. He's just this deranged person who has this false sense of reality, and really that movie was ahead of its time because there's a lot of Travises today.
Yeah.
You know.
Is he did he do Gangs in New York as well?
I believe he did.
I really love Gangs in New York.
I think he did that one, yeah. Yeah.
Tremendous. That movie is super underrated.
Gangs in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think it came out like around the time a bunch of other like big stuff came out, and then it just kind of got lost to history, but it holds up. I watched it not too long ago. Great movie.
I haven't seen that one in a long time. I need to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah. As a kid, I think I tried to watch it. I was bored out of my fucking mind.
That's usually how those things go.
But now, like I've watched it quite a few times as an adult.
Yeah.
Fucking love it. It's one of my favorite DiCaprio movies, and that's I like a lot of his movies. Like,
yeah.
The one he actually won the Oscar for is probably the one I like.
The Revenant.
Yeah, Revenant. Yeah. And then I don't really love Titanic either. You know?
Ironically enough, I think going back to another Scorsese movie, correct me if I'm wrong, but one that I thought was going to be great, but was just okay, was Shutter Island.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. Didn't do it for me quite, but.
Yeah. I do like that the Titanic is still drowning rich people in 2022. Just didn't love the movie.
Right.
Big fan of the boat. Don't really love the movie.
Yeah. God damn. God damn.
What else we got on this one, man? I feel like there's a lot more to talk about. Let's talk about some of the cast we didn't talk about earlier.
Yeah.
First off, the fact that like Rami Malek is on page 4 of this cast
I know.
list, he was amazing. I really enjoyed Dane DeHaan in this movie. Mm-hmm. He's a fucking bureaucratic scumbag.
It was so fun in this movie playing the game of who's who. Like, like, hey, I know you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that was constantly happening all throughout this movie. At one point, I was like, "Is that Joss Peck?" It is him.
Yeah. Kenneth Branagh is in
Kenneth
this
Branagh,
movie.
yeah.
He directed Thor 1.
And he was also in Tenet.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, you know, the more that the movie goes on, the more people that you start to recognize. Ironically enough, we don't have the actor who played Einstein, which leads me to believe
We do.
We do?
He's on page 2. It's Tom Conti.
Ah, okay.
And I actually did want to talk about Einstein because he is.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
This is such a prolific individual to have to put into a film, because everyone has their like preconceived, like, you know, kind of ideas about Einstein.
Yeah.
This is how he ought to look. This is how he ought to talk. This is how he ought to act. And he's almost become this like kind of like Abraham Lincoln or George Washington kind of figure, you know? And I feel like it's very hard to take someone like that and make them human.
Right.
Have you seen Lincoln?
No.
Absolutely must watch. You know, it doesn't have a lot of action in it either.
Right, yeah.
As a character piece.
Daniel Day-Lewis, right?
Yeah. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis, method acting his ass off.
Yeah.
I mean, you 100% believe that he, and I believe that he believed that he really was Abraham Lincoln.
I mean, he could be.
I think he stayed in character the whole time. I think that's a Spielberg movie.
Oh.
If I'm not mistaken.
It could be. I don't know.
But I know he stayed completely in character the whole time.
He does that.
He wrote the director like one note as himself and handed it to him, like towards the end of the filming or whatever. But yeah, that is a tremendous movie. It also probably has what I'd say best performance from Tommy Lee Jones, maybe one of my favorite Tommy Lee Jones performances of all time. Oh, and this will shock you. Walton Goggins is in it. He plays a cowardly racist.
Starting to be a theme here.
yeah.
God damn. It would suck to be typecast as the racist guy.
I mean,
at least you know you always have work. That's the great part about that role.
We very soon, like next week, we are gonna review the second half of The Shield right here. And I gotta say, man, nobody quite drops the N-bomb like Walton Goggins. He's perfect.
Yeah. He is so comfortable with just. I'm like, man, I thought that Leo did a good job with that.
Nah. The way Walton Goggins like, says it, he means that shit.
He really truly means it. Yeah.
I like if you like tried to tell me that Walton Goggins is actually a racist, it would not take much convincing. I'd be like, he is. Well, that figures.
Like, yeah, well, you know.
Yeah, I don't need to see the evidence. Yeah. I believe you.
Don't show me the Kramer tape of him using.
Yeah. I just, you know, I feel like they didn't have to do another take of any of those scenes in The Shield.
Oh, it probably wasn't even in the script, but they were like, well,
They're like, can we say that on cable right now in 2007?
We'll see if they let it slide.
Yeah. That's the worst they could do. But back to this. The cast is on and on. We talked about Florence Pugh.
I know we talked obviously about RD. We talked about his performance. What do you think about his character arc in this movie?
I fucking loved it, to be honest. At the beginning of the movie, I thought the black and white shots I was not going to like them. I typically don't, but I think that the way it contrasted the two characters, was brilliant. And you can't shoot Cillian Murphy in black and white because you lose those eyes. Oh, those beautiful eyes. That man has the most perfect fucking blue eyes that I've ever seen anywhere.
That he does.
I mean,
what you think about him? Kind of again. pulling a little bit of a memento here, where the black and white scenes were not always in the past.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Um, I guess I didn't think about that during the movie, but yeah, that to contrast it to Memento for sure. All of it was really interesting the way that they shot his character because he was so slimy.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
he was the guy that he was shaking Oppenheimer's hand and then knifing him in the back as soon as he turned
Right.
around. But he drops that line early in the movie, like nobody wants to be caught holding the knife.
Yeah.
And that was like his whole arc basically. But he wasn't that slick, and
Yeah.
it came back to bite him in the end. And I really loved that. And also, like just from a historical standpoint, Oppenheimer is not really villainized in American history, but
Yeah.
Strauss is.
Yeah.
He's kind of straight up a villain in American history,
Right.
and he is seen as somebody who, probably could have helped to avoid the Cold War and did not, and kind of put his personal ambitions and shit above national interest. Whereas, like, he tried to drag Oppenheimer's name through the dirt, and it didn't stick ultimately.
Right.
It may have in the short term,
In the short term,
but in the long term, nobody remembers any of that shit.
right.
I guarantee you, 99% of the people watching this movie don't even know about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 No, I thought he had a tremendous arc as well.
and I love the big reveal at the end where you just not only the amazing line between him and Einstein at the lake, but also that like Strauss couldn't begin to fathom that they weren't talking about him.
Yeah.
And that was such a great theme because it highlighted the fact that his character, his biggest flaw is he was never looking at the big picture here.
Right.
And his ego makes him incapable of seeing it.
Yep.
He's got the blinders on. These two guys are out there literally talking about the destruction of the human race.
Right.
And he's like, damn it, what did Oppenheimer say about me to him? And like that one little thing just illuminates everything about his character.
Yep. Tells you everything you need to know about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that was brilliant.
Oh,
All
yeah.
of that was, I think the last 30 minutes of this movie, while it is not this like riveting crescendo that we're used to in any of these films, it still was incredibly satisfying.
Oh yeah.
How they still like managed to tie everything up.
Right.
Let's talk about the Trinity test itself, because up until that point in the movie very clearly builds towards that moment.
Yeah.
We talked about the like technical aspects of this movie. You want to see the thing blow up,
Yeah.
but like your expectations get subverted in the good way. Whereas the thing goes off and you're like, this is Nolan. He's gonna fucking the speakers in this theater are gonna blow.
Mm-hmm.
And then the entire explosion is no sound.
Yeah.
Which is actually how it would have looked to them.
Right.
They were like, what, 20 miles or something?
Yeah. They were a comfortable distance away.
They knew what the fuck they were setting.
Right.
They're 20 miles away. And so it would have taken a very long time, actually, comparatively, for the sound to hit them.
Yeah.
And I just loved the beauty of the explosion, even though you knew what it represented was going to be the deaths of countless people.
Right.
But seeing all these people that had been working tirelessly to this one moment and this one end, and then like them seeing their goals be met and their work come to fruition, it was very easy to forget the horrific nature of what they were actually doing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the moments where like I enjoyed the build up more than the actual technical execution. Like I thought it was good. But again, like I was saying earlier, thank goodness the movie isn't strictly about that,
Right.
But yeah, I actually enjoyed the process more of seeing, because like they're gonna pull it off, but
Right.
seeing them be okay. So how are you gonna get around this? How are you gonna, how you guys gonna pull this off? Every time they would solve one problem, it's like three more would pop up, and they would have to work around that and try to figure it out. And so I enjoyed that. Don't get me wrong, I still really love like the visual aspect of seeing that bomb go off. And yeah, like the amount of time it took for that sound wave to hit them, and then the effect of it when it did hit them, it was in the literal sense, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, with that being said, like, is this like the most mind blowing, orgasmic Michael Bay explosion that you will ever see? No, it's not that, but it's not really supposed to be that either. And that's one of the other things that I think people who haven't seen the movie yet, which you shouldn't be listening to this part of the
Right.
podcast, yeah. But I think that's the other thing that where people maybe will have their, expectations maybe a little too high, or maybe just different from what the movie is trying to present.
I watched a clip earlier of Nolan actually talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And, in Dark Knight Rises, when the nuke goes off at the end,
Yeah.
entirely CG explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And this one
That's
is
the only way that Batman could survive it. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's because he's Batman.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Silly me.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
keep reminding you.
I know.
It's because he's Batman. But in that movie, when the bomb goes off, that's actually the relief, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're actually, that's the point where you can, this tension's been building. Hans Zimmer's in the background. And then the bomb goes off, and it's outside the range of the city, and that's when you finally can relax.
Mm-hmm.
And so it works for that. But Nolan said something very, I thought that was very accurate, very poignant, very relevant. It's hard for CG to be scary.
Yeah.
Which is why most of your horror movies that are really good,
We're all
very
practical,
limited
yeah.
CG, it's practical.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to take CG, even though it may look really good, it is hard to convince the brain to be afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, the bomb going off is part of the tension because you know what it's going to be used for.
Yeah.
It is part of the fear. It is shot as a thing to be feared. The characters, for the most part, other than the fucking warmongering Leslie Groves, Matt Damon character,
Right.
the scientists are like, yes, we did it, but they are all like very much floored by what they have done, the reality of what
Right.
they've done. And so it could not have been a CG thing, and that's why he insisted that it be practical.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so brilliant, and why I think he's on such another fucking level from anybody else. Because, like, not to keep hammering on Scorsese here, but I think for a director like that, they don't want to use it because it's like, I'm old school and I just don't want to fucking do it.
Also, I think that they're also not crazy and don't want to build a fucking bomb and blow it up.
Yeah. Or crash a plane into a building.
Yeah.
Or use a plane to destroy another plane.
Right.
Or, flip a semi. Or
Yeah. They don't. Yeah.
any of this other shit that he's done.
Right.
But it was all wonderfully done in this movie. But I agree, like, I think that the explosion going off it's probably like the halfway point of the film.
Just about.
And pretty much everything builds to that there, and then you see how the mentality changed and the bureaucracy takes over immediately.
Yeah.
It's like the thing goes off, like they have that, kind of little party there in the town. What was it called?
Shoot. I forgot.
Damn it. Anyway.
Yeah.
In their little town that they built for it, and then the next morning.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Pack them up, ship them out.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. Like they're not calling them. They're not hitting up Oppenheimer for advice or any of that shit.
Yeah. Matt Damon's character is given like the. He's giving Oppenheimer the old morning after treatment. You know? Like,
he's like, well, I thought I might come with you to Washington. He's like, what for?
Yeah.
What? You got some family there?
You got some family out there?
Yeah, he's straight up giving him you got to get the fuck out.
Right.
And, it's very evident. I mean, we all know that we've seen this shit play out a million times. Like, the scientists are always just the tools to the bureaucrats, you know, and the warmongers.
Yeah, that's like one thing that transfers from reality into fiction. The scientists are always the ones who are, just being used as tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I guarantee you, not a single one of those people had any interest in fucking theoretical physics until they found out they could use it to create mass destruction.
Right.
Then they were like, we need to get all these scientists together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's... And we saw how it went, man. And we know the real-world implementation of what they did with it.
I mean, think about, like, if our, military some years down the line realized, oh, man, like, we can use these 14-year-old kids playing Call of Duty to pilot these drones. They'd be fucking phenomenal.
Isn't that kind of what the Gran Turismo movie is about?
God damn it. Yeah.
Although that really did happen, though. Like,
see,
to an extent.
Yeah, this says based on a true story, and I'm like, I still don't believe it. Like, what?
Yeah, like, it's very loosely based on something that they really did. But they really did do the whole thing where they got, like, the best GT players, and then, like, they gave them a chance to actually drive or whatever. That is the thing that really happened.
Wow.
Yeah, like, they have the actual guy. He's, like, there promoting the movie or whatever.
Oh.
Like, the real guy, yeah, that it's about.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, you got anything else on this one before we wrap it up?
I mean, I genuinely really enjoyed this movie, and I think everybody should go see it.
I agree.
It's one of those. I do have one more question for you, man. What do you want to see Nolan do next?
Well, there is a lot of speculation. So Nolan himself has said that he would love to direct a James Bond movie.
Holy shit. That would be...
And I honestly think that from this, that would be a great place for him to go. Because I think there is going to be a significant portion of his fan base that goes to see this, and they're like,
Yeah.
Because honestly, if you're not super into a character-driven kind of historical piece like this, there is a high chance you may be bored out of your mind.
Yeah.
I saw quite a few people sleeping in the theaters.
Yeah. It was late.
It was late, sure, but still. This may not be your cup of tea. If you like go home and watch Inception and then go to the theater and watch this, you're gonna probably be disappointed.
Right. If you're expecting that, then yeah.
Yeah. If your expectation is anything other than this is a historical character piece, then you're gonna be very disappointed. So I think that Nolan with holy God, I hope like Idris Elba as James Bond. Please. But I think anybody he would cast. He could cast Cillian Murphy if he fucking wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that he would cast, I know they would kill it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that would be a way for him to make another blockbuster.
Well,
like a thriller blockbuster type movie.
And we know he can do it. All he has to do is take Tenet, but then like turn that knob down to like a 4. And I think we got a great James Bond movie.
Yeah, I mean, I know it would be tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
I think that, I mean, hell, if you think about it, Interstellar is, I mean, not Interstellar, but Inception is kind of shot like a James Bond movie.
To
an extent. It's just got another concept layered onto it with the dream stuff. But you take all the dream stuff out.
Yeah.
It's a fucking James Bond movie or a Mission Impossible movie or whatever.
Right.
I think it can be done. I think that if they're going to do it, coming off of this excellent Daniel Craig run, I think it's smart for them, too, to let somebody like Nolan take the reins. He may not make more than one of them.
Right.
Unless he just really loves it, and then you might get a trilogy out of it. And that worked really well last time.
Does Universal own that franchise?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I mean, he doesn't have a contract with them.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah, I think he can do whatever right now. I mean, it's possible Warner Brothers gets him back. He said he does not want to do another superhero movie. But, since we're here, if he was going to do one, what would you want it to be?
Okay. If he was...
We're going to say an announced superhero movie. Anything that's been announced.
Anything that's been announced. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, while I pontificate, I'm going to ask you this. Do you think that there's a possibility it could ever be a Marvel movie?
I mean, that's where my brain was going immediately.
Oh, okay. So, If he could do a Marvel movie,
Because I mean, they're both in that category, right?
Yeah.
If Kevin Feige calls, you pick up the phone.
oh yeah,
If Christopher Nolan calls, you pick up the phone.
yeah, yeah. Um, holy shit, man! Like thinking about like what is up his alley, but also thinking about something that could also challenge him as well.
I mean, off the top of my head,
I'm going Fantastic Four.
that's exactly where I was at. Because Victor Von Doom
Oh yeah,
will be done perfectly.
yeah.
Um,
And there's so much fucking science in the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Albeit pseudoscience, but
Well, the thing about this movie is so rooted in very real fucking out of our league science.
right.
But I never felt dumb watching this.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like I didn't understand what they were talking about. I may
Yeah.
not have known the exact specifics,
Right.
but I at least understood broadly what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah.
Whereas in Tenet,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna show it to you backwards and forwards, and you're still not gonna. Fucking
yeah.
get it.
Yeah. I'm like, so that was you the whole time? Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah, it looked cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It looked cool. It all looked cool as fuck. I think Fantastic Four would be a way for him to stretch his legs. He's not going to do it, but the possibilities,
Right.
I think it would be incredible. Obviously, like this is, it's too late now, but I would have loved to have seen his take on like a Moon Knight.
I would have loved to have seen this take on Secret Invasion.
Oh God, yeah,
Yeah.
the tension. I have not watched any of that, by the way. Have you reviewed that yet? Or you?
I'm gonna review it actually this coming week. I'm just gonna do the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Got one more episode, so.
Are they all out, or
No, the last episode comes out in a couple days.
I might watch it now? Then
Yeah.
I've been watching through the Mission Impossibles.
Yeah.
Because prior to last week, I'd only seen the first one,
Oh, okay.
and I want to watch the new one because I hear it's really good.
Yeah.
I watched 2 and almost just stopped.
I get. I actually saw 2 in theater when I was a kid, and I mean it was cool then, but
It felt like a Fast and the Furious
a little bit
to me
before its time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Two. Not only does it not hold up, it wasn't really that great then, and it kind of defeated the purpose of the first one. Like where he is more of a spy thriller in the first one, and the second one just straight up shoot 'em up action.
yeah. But I thought
the
that
third
3,
one,
oh my God,
Very good.
I'm watching Ghost Protocol now.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it, but like to me, like the third one is like here, and I think Ghost Protocol might be like about there for me.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it yet, but it's gonna be hard to top that one, man. Because like I don't love that genre really,
Yeah.
and so it really takes. You've really got to bring it and do some like unsurprising things, like and that movie, like it thrilled me in the literal sense
Oh yeah.
throughout, and they had me going.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and they they do that. I really enjoyed. What's the one with Henry Cavill?
is that Fallout?
Fallout. Yeah. Yeah.
I have not got to that one.
Yeah,
yet.
but I say, I think that one.
That's
yeah.
the one where he cocks his arms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's Henry Cavill. He can do that.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like it's ridiculous that he does it. I'm saying that motherfucker just cocked his arms. You should probably.
You
get
should
out of the
probably.
way.
Yeah. You should probably not fight him.
Yeah.
I'm not fighting nobody that cocks their arms
Yeah.
before he punches me.
Unless it's Roman Reigns.
Unless it's Roman. And like the airplane. I mean, yeah, the airplane scene in that movie is.
I think Ghost Protocol. I'm right about the point where they're going to do the Dubai thing where he runs around the building.
Yeah. Yes. That was also.
I'm like, that's where I stopped. I
Yeah.
stopped right there.
Yeah.
Like right before he's going to do that.
I'm like, Tom, you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, like there's a few movies I would like to see Nolan do, like in the superhero genre. Fantastic Four I think is a good option. I think that again, Secret Invasion, I think would have been fantastic. The thing of it is though, like if I were to give Nolan anything, Marvel, DC, or whatever, it would have to be something that is untethered from the universe, more or less. so that way he would have more free reign to kind of do what he wants. And because I don't see Nolan, even in this theoretical conversation, sitting down and combing through a whole catalog of movies or TV shows and trying to figure out where his story could fit in. You know,
Yeah. I mean, if I have my absolute pick, I would love to see him do White Sand, but it's not going to happen. But I just know he would kill it because that's the way that story goes and the subverting of expectations and everything. Like, I can picture it right now, the way he would shoot it,
Man, also, it's just like adapting comic books is, like, especially if you're going to try to, like, adapt the comic book and not do something based on the comic book, but if you're going to try to, like, Watchmen it, it's a tough task, Think about it this way. Even the director's cut of Watchmen leaves out a lot of stuff.
Right. Even the ultimate cut.
Yeah. So, with White Sand, you can't do that in a movie. It just can't be. Like, if not one.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like he could do it in like 3 hours.
You think so? Okay.
The drunken guy, the guy that's like the kind of Monte Cristo thing.
Yeah.
That's who he's going to cast Matt Damon for.
Yeah, I can see that actually.
Yeah.
They might be able to.
He there's no way he adapts that. It's too low of a thing, like it's.
I don't know what his thoughts are on fantasy, but there's a certain point though where sci-fi becomes fantasy.
Right. Oh, there's a lot of things I think in like the Cosmere I would love to see him do. Really, any of it, right? But the problem there is at some point, like what Nolan would want to do is going to conflict with what I want to see, undoubtedly, and so it's probably not a good pick. But something like White Sand, it's in it, but it's not really in it.
Yeah.
It's kind of its own thing. I could see him doing something like that. But any of like the mainline stuff, no, I really just need a director that's gonna do whatever the fuck Brandon tells him to do.
Right. Right. Yeah, Nolan's not really that guy.
No, he's not. No, I wouldn't think so. But yeah, I would love to see him do that story. I can tell you this: whatever he does next, I'm gonna be there open night to see that shit.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah, I can't wait to see what it is.
Probably together.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. I'm sure whatever it is. Again, I haven't seen a bad Christopher Nolan movie yet.
But he said publicly, "I want to do a James Bond." So if you're the person in charge of picking, how are you not already on the phone with the guy?
Right. Yeah. You got to be looking for a solid place to reboot. That's a popular IP, a popular director. Yeah. Go ahead and make it happen.
Yeah. Don't just skip over J.J. Abrams, and just
was he in line for that?
No, but if you're trying to revitalize your franchise, I mean,
God damn.
If you type that into Google, I think it just takes you to his IMDb page.
Oh, he has tried a couple.
He succeeded on quite a few.
Yeah.
Star Trek and Star Wars. It's not his fault that Star Wars got fucked after.
So I would put an asterisk next to that one. Like did he revitalize it? Yeah, but I mean,
he did what the studio hired him to do. I mean, you can't deny that.
I guess technically,
because in the very next film, they fucked it up, and then they were like, shit, get JJ back on the phone. He can fix anything.
Oh, shit. God damn.
Oh, man, we should wrap this one up. What's going on Superhero Homies next? What you got coming up?
Yeah, so I will be giving the full review of Secret Invasion, and the cool thing about this one is that I'm also going to be doing almost like a side-by-side comparison of the comic book. It's going to be really interesting because they are vastly different. The things they have in common are that they're both called Secret Invasion and they both have scrolls in them. But after that, I'm actually going to be having the homie Dylan on to review one of the latest DC animated movies. And it's going to be interesting because Dylan's going to be taking the lead on this one more or less. It is Justice League and Ruby, the anime. I am very unfamiliar with Ruby. I know that he is very familiar with Ruby. And so he was the first person I called. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to do. I'm gonna have the homie Oz on very soon as well to discuss the Last
I'm
Ronin.
looking forward to that.
Yeah, that was a very cool Ninja Turtles comic book made by Kevin Eastman, the guy who created the Ninja Turtles. So it was very much meant for people who grew up with the Turtles, and a very very cool story. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to both of those things. Um, because you mentioned it though, I got to get your take on this before we go. DC announced at San Diego Comic Con that they're going to do a Crisis on Infinite Earths animated movie. Are you hearing about this for the first time right now?
Yes.
My opinion
Hmm.
is that in a non-interconnected universe, that movie is not worth shit. But I want to know what you think about it.
So okay, if it's not connected to anything like any other, if it's not tied to any other movies, does it mean anything? No, but that doesn't mean it can't be a good movie on its own.
It'll
Uh,
be better than what CW do. But I mean, if
they
that's the bar,
that
then
yeah, and CW gave a valiant effort. I mean, they tried something.
they had Kevin Conroy,
They did have Kevin
and they
Conroy,
also
yeah.
made another 4 hours and 38 minutes of of, uh, of
Yeah,
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
they did. Um, my worry about Crisis on Infinite Earths as an animated movie is they severely fucked up Injustice,
Right.
and to the point where if you watch the Injustice movie, you probably think that the comic books are shit. And if they put in that same level for something that is much more convoluted, then Crisis on Infinite Earths is going to be it's going to be a mangled mess.
Yeah.
So they really need their A team back on the job to do Crisis, because that is such a deep and layered story. One of the first comic book stories that was not only one of the first crossovers, but it was also the story that they used to have this big event where they took all these comic books that were in different universes and not connected, and they focused everything down into one. I don't know exactly why DC would want to do this, because the last place they really left off at was Dark Side War, which did a great job of kind of resetting things. So I'm not really sure what their purpose is for doing Crisis on Infinite Earths, besides the fact that it's a big name comic book,
Right.
but we'll see.
It sounds like it's being mined for all the wrong reasons.
Yep.
Because honestly, unless you're just gonna dig back up, unless this is their way of like saying we're gonna go back to continuity with the animated stuff, which I would love.
Yeah.
If they're like, if this starts off with like Barry Allen running at the end of
Yeah.
Justice League Dark Apocalypse War,
Apocalypse War. Yeah.
you know, and I would lose my shit immediately.
Right.
You know? And they could do that.
Yeah.
You know? They could use that to join together all these little kind of movies they've been doing since then. That would be quite brilliant, actually. So they won't do that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure exactly what are they going to put in there. I mean, and that movie, it's not a it's not the greatest starting point either. I mean, Barry Allen dies in that. Kara Zor-El dies in that. Uh, a
Right.
lot of heroes die and stay dead for a long time. So
And it is weird to me, like, how. And if you're trying to make that as a complete standalone,
yeah,
I don't understand how or why you would do it.
well, you don't, right? It would be like making a standalone Flashpoint movie.
Right.
Like it doesn't. It, where does this? like
You were saying?
It's like it doesn't. If it's not coming from anywhere, and if it's not leading to anything, then it's not really doing anything. This story is not meant as a standalone story. It's
Right.
meant to as a big interconnecting thing to get you from one place to another. So yeah, me personally, I'm not on their board of directors or whatever,
That's very evident.
but this would not be my call. If it were me, I would go Doomsday Clock, and then from there I would kind of do a reverse engineer of DC Rebirth. And that's a very smooth transition into a stable continuity again. But
Yeah.
what do I know?
Right. I mean, that being said, man, I really want to thank you for joining me for this. This is one of those things where I feel like it's hard to really sit down and review something that's as just brilliant as this, and look at it as a lens, through the lens of a critic, and also, something that is, to liken it to Avatar, it's almost more of a attraction than it is a movie, in a lot of ways. It's just this landmark kind of event that you have to consume.
Right.
You have to see what it's about. And yeah, I think it is one of the most important kind of film pieces of our time. So
I'll say one last thing about Oppenheimer, and that is, even though this movie, you just compared it to Avatar, which is actually they're so different, but that is a good comparison. This movie is not it's not Avatar in the sense of the experience of it. It's not like it's just not one of these grand movies that kind of encompass all your senses like that. But what Oppenheimer is, though, is a movie that you should still see in theater.
yes,
Like it's hard to explain, but even though this movie has like minimal to no CG, and even though it's a biopic, this is one of those that still comes across, that still keeps you engaged on such a unique level that it almost in a weird way you should still see in the theater.
I don't think it's going to play the same at home on a couch.
Yeah.
It's really not. So, that being said, man, thanks again for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely check this man out over at Superhero Homies. You can find me over there as well. And then we're going to be right back here, joined by the homie Joe for the next episode. And we are going to finish off what I consider to be one of the greatest television shows, if not the greatest television show of all time, The Shield. So we will be back for that. This has been another episode of Entertainment Evolved.